The harsh glow of her phone screen lit up Alex's face in the dim apartment. It was a bank notification, cutting through the background noise of the busy city outside her window. Overdraft fee. Again. A familiar knot tightened in her stomach. She stared at the message, the small numbers mocking her. A tiny digital punch to her already bruised bank account. Mark, sprawled on her worn sofa, barely looked up from his own phone. "Just put it on your credit card. You always do," he said, his voice laced with an easy dismissal that grated on her nerves. "What's the big deal? It's just money." His tone wasn't mean, but it wasn't kind either. It was the sound of someone who just didn't get it, or didn't care to. He had no idea how those words, so casual to him, felt like a judgment to her. He always seemed to have money for whatever he wanted, and his advice always circled back to using plastic. Alex didn't snap back. She didn't launch into a defensive rant about how tight things were, or how she was trying to break free from this cycle. Instead, she just quietly closed the bank app. Her thumb pressed the screen, and the notification vanished, taking with it the immediate sting. But the feeling of resolve stayed. It wasn't anger she felt, not really. It was something deeper, a quiet decision solidifying inside her. She looked around the small, slightly run-down living room she shared with her roommate. Her eyes lingered on the stack of unpaid bills on the coffee table, then moved to the worn-out sneakers by the door, then to the faded poster on the wall. She was making a mental snapshot, a final inventory of the life she was living, the one she was about to change. Sometimes the biggest mistakes aren't made by accident, but by habit. She had fallen into so many of them, small ones that had added up to this constant struggle. The overdrafts, the credit card reliance, the feeling of always being one step behind. It had become her normal, a routine she had accepted without truly seeing it for what it was. A trap. With a deliberate movement, she reached into her worn canvas bag, pulling out a small leather-bound notebook. It looked old, its edges softened from use, the pages dog-eared. She flipped it open, past pages filled with what looked like numbers, calculations, and scribbled notes. There was a determined glint in her eyes now, a spark that hadn't been there a moment ago. This wasn't just a notebook, it was a record, a history, and maybe, just maybe, a map to a different future. Before we continue, subscribe to the channel and tell us in the comments where you are watching from. Alex's quiet determination in that moment wasn't a sudden impulse. It was the culmination of years spent navigating a financial maze she hadn't even realized she was in. Her journey began right after college, in her early 20s, when she landed her first real job in a bustling city. The job was demanding, the hours long, and the pay, while a step up from student work, was barely enough to cover the high cost of living. She found a small, slightly run-down apartment, splitting the rent with a roommate, hoping to make ends meet. Her family, who lived in a different state, were supportive in spirit, but financially strained themselves. Calls often came with requests for small loans or help with bills. Alex, despite her own struggles, rarely said no. Her neighborhood was vibrant and exciting, but every corner held a temptation, every street a new expense, pushing her to spend more than she earned. Her first few paychecks vanished almost immediately. There were new work clothes to buy, because she needed to look professional. Then came the social outings with colleagues, after-work drinks, team lunches, which felt essential for networking and fitting in. And of course, small gifts for family, a way to show she was thinking of them, even from afar. She never seemed to have money left over, always living paycheck to paycheck, not understanding why. Then came the credit card. It arrived in the mail, a shiny plastic rectangle promising freedom, a safety net for those unexpected expenses. Alex saw it as a solution, not realizing it was a trap. She used it for minor emergencies at first, like a sudden car repair, then for conveniences, like groceries when her bank account was running low. Eventually, it became a tool for wants, a concert ticket, a new pair of shoes, a weekend trip she couldn't really afford. Her friends, especially Mark, constantly suggested expensive dinners, concerts, and weekend getaways. Alex felt compelled to join, not wanting to be left out, always putting the expenses on her card. She told herself it was an investment in her social life, a necessary part of being young in the city. The pressure to keep up was immense, and the credit card made it seem possible. Adding to the strain was her family. Their reliance on her for small sums meant she never felt truly financially independent. She always felt pressure to help, even when it hurt her own finances, often putting these family loans on her credit card too. It was a cycle of giving that left her perpetually depleted. What Alex didn't grasp was the silent killer: interest. She consistently paid only the minimum balance on her credit card statements, believing that as long as she paid something, she was fine. She had no idea how compound interest worked, how it was silently eating away at her future, turning small purchases into much larger debts over time. The numbers on her statements seemed abstract, not real money she was losing. The small debts began to accumulate, turning into a constant, nagging anxiety. The credit card balance grew, and soon she was taking on additional small loans or using buy now pay later options for larger purchases, creating a tangled web of obligations. Each new payment felt like plugging one hole only to spring another leak. Emotionally, Alex was a wreck. She frequently felt overwhelmed, unable to relax or enjoy her free time due to the looming shadow of debt. She would often check her bank balance with dread, a pit forming in her stomach each time she saw the dwindling numbers. She started avoiding financial statements and calls from creditors, hoping the problems would magically disappear if she just ignored them long enough. A growing sense of inadequacy and shame began to set in, making her question her ability to manage her life. She felt she was failing as an adult, constantly struggling while others seemed to thrive. Her relationship with Mark, while seemingly friendly, was subtly strained by his constant enabling and dismissive attitude towards her financial woes. His casual remarks made her feel unheard and judged, deepening her isolation. That overdraft fee, combined with Mark's flippant comment, was the final push. Alex realized she could not continue down this path. The small worn notebook she had pulled out from her bag was not a diary, as some might assume, but a meticulously kept, though often ignored, record of her finances. This time, she vowed to actually use it, to truly confront the numbers she had so long avoided. She spent an entire weekend poring over her bank statements and credit card bills. Every transaction, every minimum payment, every interest charge was scrutinized. She calculated the true cost of her debt, adding up all the interest she'd paid over the years. The numbers were shocking, a stark realization of how much she had truly lost, how much of her hard-earned money had simply vanished into the pockets of banks. It was a painful education, but a necessary one. With this revelation, Alex began devouring every resource she could find on personal finance for beginners. She watched countless YouTube videos, borrowed books from the library on budgeting and debt management, and enrolled in free online courses. She learned about the debt snowball method, the importance of an emergency fund, and the power of living below her means. It was like learning a new language, one that promised freedom. Her first hard decision was creating a strict budget. This meant cutting out all non-essential spending. Saying no to Mark's invitations for expensive dinners and weekend trips became a frequent, though awkward, occurrence. She explained her new financial boundaries to her family, who initially met it with some resistance, accustomed as they were to her generosity. But eventually they understood, seeing her dedication and the logic behind her choices. It was tough, but necessary. Instead of confiding in Mark, who always seemed to offer unhelpful advice, Alex found an online community of people also working to get out of debt. There, she found genuine encouragement and practical advice, a space where she felt understood and supported, without judgment. This community became her new sounding board, a place for shared victories and collective problem solving. To accelerate her debt repayment, Alex took on a small side hustle. She dedicated evenings and weekends to earning extra income, even if it was just a few $100s a month. It was tiring, but seeing that extra money go directly towards her debt was incredibly motivating. She meticulously applied the debt snowball method, attacking the smallest debt first. Each time a debt was paid off, she celebrated the small victory, which fueled her motivation to keep going. Months later, the transformation was undeniable. Alex had paid off her first credit card and made significant progress on others. She had even managed to build a small emergency fund, a safety net she never thought she'd have. Then, a familiar crisis struck, but not for her. Mark, still trapped in his own spending habits, suddenly faced a major financial emergency due to an unexpected expense. He turned to Alex, expecting her usual bailout. Alex calmly but firmly explained her new financial principles. She offered advice and resources instead of money, emphasizing the importance of sustainable habits over quick fixes. She shared her budget and the strategies she had used. Initially defensive, Mark eventually saw the tangible results of Alex's efforts, the peace and security she now radiated. He started to ask genuine questions about how she did it, a flicker of understanding in his eyes. Alex realized her true victory wasn't just being debt-free, but having the knowledge and discipline to manage her finances responsibly and to inspire others to do the same, even those who once doubted her. She wasn't suddenly rich, but she was financially secure and at peace. She continued to budget and save, understanding that financial freedom was an ongoing journey, not a destination. Her relationship with Mark transformed. He began to respect her financial acumen and even asked her for advice. She found genuine joy in her life, no longer burdened by financial anxiety. The most expensive lesson is the one you refuse to learn, but the most valuable investment is in yourself.